First, what do the following countries all have in common? We are talking here about Argentina, Belgium, Chile, Colombia, Croatia, Denmark, Estonia, France, Greece, the Vatican, Ireland, Israel, Japan, Kazakhstan, Kuwait, Latvia, Lebanon, Malta, Namibia, the Netherlands, Norway, Panama, Peru, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Singapore, South Africa, Sweden, Switzerland, Thailand, Tunisia, Turkey, or Turkey as it used to be called, the United Kingdom and Uruguay all have in common. They have all got an ambassador representing the United States. What does Australia have in common with anyone on that list? Well, nothing. Because believe it or not, a sign of how bad the relationship is between our current government and the United States, our biggest and most important ally, in all different reasons, is that the Americans can't be bothered to send an ambassador to Australia. Now, this has been picked up on today, amazingly, by Trump-hating media. And they went to somebody called Michael Shoebridge. Michael Shoebridge, who served as a senior defence policy official at the Australian Embassy in Washington, said the lack of an ambassadorial appointment was part of a disturbing pattern about a lack of engagement between the Albanese government and the Trump administration, including, of course, the lack of meeting between the two leaders. They go on. Shoebridge said that the personal relationships were more important than ever in the Trump era, given the president did not place the same importance on alliances and traditional policy processes as his predecessors. So what does it say? That the Australian Prime Minister can't be bothered really trying for a meeting with the President of the United States. The President of the United States does not consider the priority of places like Uruguay as someone that they need to have a representative in. Now, we know about the obvious choice of this government to cuddle up to China while trying to keep America at arm's length because of opinion polls about people's opinion of Donald Trump. But it says everything about priorities of this government. Now, the only silver lining about America not having an ambassador in Australia means they wouldn't have to talk to our ambassador in the United States. That perhaps could be the only upside. But if someone some way can tell me what the advantage is here, that America considers Australia now bottom of the list. More than 50 countries have an ambassador. Australia doesn't. Extraordinary. Meantime, let's get to another wasted day in Canberra. Did they make your life better today? Well, no. In fact, these are the types of things that just today were the priorities of the upper house, the Senate, the House of Review.
It's Senator Bragg who Senator Cash referred to yesterday as Braggy. Braggy. I don't know whether it's Braggy with an IE or Braggy with a Y at the end.
And there is consideration of a motion moved by Senator Thorpe, and I call Senator Thorpe to move her motion. And just before you do that, Senator Thorpe, may I remind you that the message stick is fine to have in the Senate, but the procedure is that you advise me and the Deputy Clerk of your intention to bring a message stick into the House.
But while they wasted a lot of time, there was a medical miracle. Now, Nick McKim is a senator for the Greens, and he was in the Parliament today wearing a mask. Now, I don't know whether it's COVID or something else that he was trying to keep inside, but there was a medical miracle because when the point being made by one of his colleagues was right, he was suddenly cured. Pay attention to the bottom left of your screen, or whichever way, bottom left.
You can't make some stuff up in politics. But what about this? The last Parliament, we saw Labor coming up with a million reasons why they couldn't do anything on public housing. Well, they couldn't help people out on rents, they couldn't do anything, they couldn't build public housing, and they kept saying, oh, it's all the Greens' fault for not supporting their crap bills. So then this Parliament, they start with a public housing bill. So well done, Labor. Well done. You bring a public housing bill into the chamber, you push it through the lower house, and do you know what public housing they're building?
What is it?
They're building public housing for US troops under AUKUS. That's their public housing bill.
He has been queuing, my friends. All he had to do was have a go at AUKUS. All he had to do was make a point against the war parties. I am cured, baby. Seriously? Sick enough that he had to wear that in the but then, whoof, a man cured before our very eyes. But what else did they do today? And as always, in between all of those other things, the Senate today united to kill any sort of a debate and any sort of a discussion about the types of definitions that are inside the laws of this country when it comes to men and women. And guess who was one of the main people who was blowing up about what Alex Antic and others were trying to do today, trying to focus on two genders?
I move that the following bill be introduced, a bill for an act to amend the Sex Discrimination Act 1984 and for related purposes.
We know exactly what Senators Antic and Canavan are up to here. They are introducing a bill that they want to use to provide a platform for transphobic people in our community to punch down on transgender Australians and in particular on trans kids.
I'm telling you, the man is cured. The man is cured. All he has to do is be standing up for the little people's rights. And off comes the mask. No debate. No move to the second question whatsoever. Because, of course, there were much more important things for Canberra to be focused on today, none of which changed your life. Maybe their health, but not your life. Now, as you know, the endless debate as people are ripping themselves in half about net zero. Do we keep it? Do we get rid of it? It's a little bit of a Goldilocks question for some in Parliament right now. And we know that renewables only is apparently the better option, the one that only Australia is obsessed with delivering, no matter how many other countries are saying, yeah, we might need some backup, like things like, I don't know, nuclear. And we have people who are, of course, pushing said policies who, when asked about the benefits of them, won't answer.
Will the Minister confirm that the government will meet its renewable energy target of 82% by 2030?
I can absolutely confirm it is this government's intention to continue to work towards that target in 2030, absolutely. And I'm pleased to tell the honourable member that we are making very good progress towards it. It is 2025 and we are working towards that 2030 target and we're making good progress.
Now remember, it was them who decided to put the 2030 target into law. So what happens if they are going to be in breach of their own law? That's right, nothing to see here because it's them. Remember, there is another big step about new climate targets that kick in for 2035. These will all be much closer to a teal and green worldview than the one that was able to squeak through at the 22 election. And of course, yes, get reaffirmed in the 25 election. Hence why they didn't tell anyone. A little bit like when they were talking about keeping the internet safe for kids. It's only about keeping the internet safe for kids. It's not about telling you that every time you have to log on to something the government deems to be potentially a little bit naughty, you're going to have to tell them who and what you are. But more on that in a moment. But believe it or not, there is a country that is always considered to be more progressive than Australia, always considered to be the light on the hill, the one that we should replicate. Remember when it came to same-sex marriage, they did that first. When it came to a GST, they did that first. When it comes to the New Zealand government delivering what the Australian government wouldn't, we are constantly told there is a better way. And I love New Zealand. I look forward to, can we somehow do an Our Town in New Zealand? Why not? It's a good idea. Lots of people watching us a little bit later in night there. We love you. Well, of course, their government is no longer a lefty government. It's a centre-right government. It's one that is a minority government and is propped up by other parties that push them into more common sense positions. So all of those lefties who have said, we must do it because New Zealand does it, are they going to follow the decisions that have been made by the New Zealand Parliament? Because as we know, the government is slowly moving away from the declarations of net zero. And as the Turnbull Times was tearing up today, the New Zealand government votes to bring back fossil fuel exploration in a major reversal. Let's steel ourselves here. What's happened? In 2018, the Jacinta Ardern-led Labor government banned the granting of new offshore oil and gas exploration permits as part of its plan to transition towards carbon-neutral future. Yay, amazing. But on Thursday afternoon, the ruling right-wing coalition, boom, 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 voted to reverse the ban after the third and final reading of the Crown Minerals and Amendment Act, a move it believes will alleviate energy shortages and high energy prices. And it didn't just squeak through. It got a pretty big majority, 68 to 54. Speaking about this, let's compare the pair. You have the Australian Climate and Energy Minister in old mate Bowen, who is making promises that even he is now openly saying, probably not. Well, the oh-so-woke land of the white cloud, what are they saying here about why they need more oil, more gas? Because, quote, the ban sent a chilling message to the investment community, halting the very exploration that underpins our energy security and leading directly to the supply constraints and price volatility that we see today. This man could be making a speech in an Australian parliament where he would be booed down. Thankfully, he's in a parliament that can do something. And he means, yeah, sure, we'll keep going with the renewables, but you need to put stuff underneath it. In times where renewable production decreases, sun and wind, it is clear that we need contingency options to ensure that Kiwis are not left footing bigger bills and to ensure that we have sufficient supply. Now, you know how often they talk about New Zealand should be a state of Australia? No. What about the New Zealand government gets to take us over for a couple of years? Maybe just a year, just to settle a few things straight. And all of those people that have been handed award after award after award for saying, New Zealand, it's the way everything should happen. They, of course, are all silent now. So may I take up the mantle and say a little more New Zealand common sense, a little more Kiwi common sense in the way that we are running things here in Australia. Perhaps not a bad idea. Now, as you know, one of the things that's being discussed in Parliament at the moment, laws have already passed, it'll kick in December. There's no debate about whether we're going to get this social media ban when it comes to people under the age of 18. And I've got to say, as a father of little kids, primary school kids, yeah, I want them off this stuff, right? But there's another issue that's worth talking about here, which is not just about whether people do or don't get access to certain things, but what about the obsessiveness of devices themselves? You can still rack up many an hour playing a game or watching YouTube Kids or all other things that happen on the internet. And the reality is that while most of us have had plenty to say about the internet addictions of people under the age of 18, are we looking at ourselves much? You know how they always talk about the modelling of behaviour? There were those ads that used to say the way adults treat alcohol is a message sent to the kids. The way mum and dad interact in their relationship sends a message to the kids. So perhaps something that, of course, no government will go anywhere near. Why? Because, firstly, they use many of these platforms, of course, to get themselves elected or re-elected, and I've got some doozies of social media garbage tonight for you, I promise you. But what about some sort of a conversation about maybe every now and then put the device down? We are the ones that are modelling an obsession with these devices. Now, I get it. I will freely admit to being somebody who, like I told you last night, can go down the rabbit holes of YouTube for too long. And yeah, sometimes I'll sit there and be looking at reels when I shouldn't be, which is why you need to occasionally have a digital detox day. Mine is Friday, where I am basically unavailable to the world because I just need to remind myself that the world is up and around, not on my laptop, iPad, or in my palm. But interestingly, there was an interesting piece of advice which was put forward by somebody today in one of the papers here, which was, again, about the importance of not just what is being looked at on devices, but how do you keep kids from doom scrolling if they do have any sort of access to social media. Doom scrolling is, of course, when you just sit there and you just keep looking and looking and looking and looking and looking and looking and looking. And Dr. Martin says, now this is not the bloke making shoes, this is a bloke who's talking about sort of beyond blue, the psychology of things here. Instead of shaming or blaming our teams, we need to start from a place of empathy about the dynamics that are involved that are really nothing to do with them as an individual. He argues that parents need to keep the lines of communication open, which is good, which means don't let the kid just sort of run off to their bedroom and just end up shutting the world out. That might mean that you lose some of the battles. You don't have to turn up to every fight that you are invited to as a parent. But it's an interesting way of saying things. But I do want to say this. As a person who's got some kids in primary school, and you may know this as parents, grandparents, or the beloved aunties or uncles. the kids can't buy the devices unless we buy them for them. If you are in a group chat with other parents at school, why not suggest, hey guys, let's all agree not to buy a device? I know that there is all sorts of reasons why people say, oh, I need a phone in the single digits of my life. I need a phone because my kid is in before or after school care. But the reality is that as much as I love these devices, they are like casinos. There is no natural light and you can barely keep track of the time. Now, for many, the horse is bolted, but for those where the horse is still in the stables, and again, I speak about my family here, it's tough. They want it, their friends have it, but we are the ones who decide whether we give them the devices. In the same way that you can't blame a kid for being overweight when you fed them crap, the same exists for technology. Think about that. Now to our nightly segment of having a look at what they did in Parliament while you were working. While you were working your backside off, or you're enjoying your retirement because you have already worked the backside off and you are slowly growing your backside back by watching telly or doing whatever it is that you want to do. Let us have a look at the sort of garbage that has been happening because, of course, we know politicians love spending other people's money, but we also know that they have all got an extra staffer to help them make stupid videos on social media. Example number one, some Greens. Remember these people being paid, what, $200 and a bit thousand, 6-year terms. They're on their way to about a guaranteed $1 million to be members of the Senate. This is what they did today in Canberra on social media.
Larissa is going to tell you about her top 5 favourite sci-fi films, and you better be nice.
Who can go beyond Sigourney Weaver in Aliens 2? Number 2, okay, I know they've redone Dune now, and it is pretty good, but the OG, David Lynch, you just cannot beat it. Now, Star Wars 4, 5 and 6, don't make me choose. It's like choosing between my children.
And as you know, in the era of social media, there's an awful lot of oversharing that goes on, and we've poked fun at many a politician who thinks that their mere waking up in the morning is apparently something they must tell their constituents. This is a new Member of Parliament who I think is oversharing because this is what they did today on social media in Canberra.
For my people in the front, in the nosebleed section.
That's it? Thanks for voting for me. I can print my own speech. Can we do some of those behind the scenes? Like, I'll gladly show you me getting out of my car in the car park. I go up in the lift. I talk to our team. I go to my office. I get my makeup done. Or each of these could be taxpayer-funded social media videos, right? Another one from the dear leader.
5 things we've rolled out this week to help with the cost of living.
And then, of course, there's old mate clueless Claire O'Neill, who, you know, she's taken a bit of a demotion, but she's still a, you know, they love her. Press gallery in particular. What did clueless Claire do on social media today while you were working?
Lynn puts it up. Bang! Jeremy Lynn from downtown!
Unless you're the Liberal Party, keep scrolling. I know it's a new term and there's a lot to think about, especially in housing, but what are you guys doing?
But did you print any speeches today, Claire? Because apparently that is the sign of maximum productivity in the Australian Parliament.